Good evening. This is Stedman Fry, along with my co-host Amanda Goodman-Berry and Flex McGee, with Delta Workers Unite, the Working Class Podcast, your newest resource for news, updates, and information on the state of the union drive and how you can get involved. We'll bring you interviews and stories from workers just like you and us who want to share happenings as they see them. We'll also be debunking the falsehoods and misconceptions about the union and giving you the tools to do the same. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you will know when we post or go live. Thank you. Good evening. This is Stedman Fry here with Delta Workers Unite, the Working Class Podcast, joined by my two co-hosts. Let's pass it to Amanda Goodman-Berry. We have a special guest today, Tom Regan, but I'll leave Flex to introduce him, so I'll pass it to Amanda.
Hi, I'm Amanda Goodman-Berry. Hey. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm Amanda Goodman-Berry, Minneapolis Rep.
Hey, yo, what's good, everybody? Oh, go ahead. What's good, everybody? It's Flex McGee.
It's all yours.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Flex McGee, ATL. Y'all know how we do it. Delta Workers Unite, a working class podcast. And I'd like to introduce a good friend of mine, a man full of infinite knowledge when it comes to this contract world. And I want to give it to my guy, Tom Regan. Welcome.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. And first, I want to say thank you for all the hard work you do on behalf of the employees at Delta. Trying to get a collective voice is not something that's easy to do, but at the end of the day, it'll be well worth the wait. My name's Tom Regan. I have 41 years in the IAM. Started back in 1984, fueling airplanes. Then I moved up to U.S. Airways in 1986. And then became a mechanic in 1988. And then 1993, my union called on me to work on special projects. And I've been on union leave of absence for the last 30 years and have rose up through the ranks. And my responsibility today is working for Richie Johnson, General Vice President of Air Transport. I have about 62 contracts that I administered through my office, probably covering 80,000 employees in the system. My main role on behalf of Richie and his staff is to make sure that all the contracts are negotiated and coordinated, handling collective bargaining agreement, mediation, and all that other fun stuff. So I can tell you over the last 5 years, as we come out of the pandemic, we have really made some huge strides. We just finished off an American Airlines contract here that went effect in January. The original agreement was 5 years in the middle of the pandemic. That 2-year extension we just agreed to, strictly economics, put our ramp folks at American at $39.14 an hour, which leads the industry. And they kept everything else they had in the contract, including industry-leading healthcare benefits. They have the profit sharing the same as Delta, although the profit sharing depends on the amount of money you make, so the formula is the same. United Airlines, 32,000 strong on that property alone. We did a 2-year extension in May of 23. They'll be going to 3782 here in May, and we're back in negotiations 12 months early. So we're at the table now, trying to get back all the other things. Delta, as of right now, they're about 3702 on the ramp and customer service. I'm sure Delta will be looking at additional pay raises here like they normally do around April. Alaskan Airlines, we're in negotiations as we speak on the Hawaiian merger. We'll be putting that together. We just started last week on that. Alaskan Airlines, their customer service will be upwards of 3764 here come August. And their ramp will be at least at 3702, which would match Delta. So when you look at the industry, the top 3 contracts are IAM logos on them. And that's not by disguise, that's by purpose. The IAM is known in this industry for negotiating very strong labor agreements, and we will continue to do so, and would love nothing more than to have a shot at sitting across from Delta and making that a collective voice. Now, that does not mean we're here to take Delta down. We're just here to represent the interests of those 18,000 ramp-related employees, no different than the pilots do. And believe me, when you get at the table with a collective voice, the chances of you achieving your goals is much more optimistic than it would be individually. So we truly look forward to that, but we're very happy in our department right now. We're doing very well. Contracts are very strong. There's been a change in the administration, which certainly not here to talk politics, but right now a collective voice is something that everyone should have, and we're hoping we can finish this process off. And if I'm still around, we'd love to have the opportunity to sit across from Delta management on your behalf and work with you to achieve those things that everyone else has in the industry, and certainly look forward to that. So I do want to say on behalf of Richie Johnson that he's very proud of you folks and has put a lot of effort into trying to help you along this process. And whether I'm there or not, the IAM will stand behind you and make sure you have the expertise at the table to negotiate one of the best contracts in the industry. So if there's any questions I can take, Flex or Stedman or Amanda, I'll be glad to do that.
Hey, I want to get right here. I want to get right to it, Tommy. For those of us who really don't know, can you tell us how the negotiation process starts? Like, where do you start with getting contracts? How does this process work?
Yeah, well, I mean, this would be a first contract if we organize Delta. Probably one of the largest contracts for first agreement outside of United and Continental. But once you're organized, then we have collective rights. We would notify the company that we're now the collective bargaining agent, and we would like to set aside dates to start the negotiation process. Next step normally would be that we would send out a questionnaire to every Delta employee telling us, say, let us know what you think you need to put a collective bargaining agreement together. After that, we would choose folks from the ranks to be on the negotiating committee. And then after that, we would send them to our education center, which is one of the most sophisticated schools around for labor. And they would take a 1-week training course on negotiation prep. And those basics would teach you the fundamentals of, breaking down articles, language, overtime rules, regulations, healthcare, pension, 401k, you name it. And then they would probably turn that group over to me, and then we would coordinate with the company and then get at the table, start exchanging proposals. And then as we exchange those proposals, once you reach tentative agreements, you would pile them up until you reach a final agreement, and then that would membership would ultimately ratify. So in brief, that's the process. Sometimes a little difficult, but that is the process in place to make sure you get the things you want in your contract.
Thank you. One quick, just to make sure that people understand. So you're saying you guys do send out a survey, a questionnaire, to where people can kind of rank how they feel the importance of different things, correct? So it's not just the IAM pushing something on you. It's actually the people's choices of what's important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. We when we send out a questionnaire, alone on this Alaskan Hawaiian merger, the questionnaire alone produced almost 5,000 responses. So we sit and go through each one of them, compile them, put them into articles, and then what we do is respect the employee's decision to say, this is what I want for overtime, this is what I want for holidays, this is what I want for vacation. And then, of course, you have to negotiate with the company. But no, the IAM does not take you into negotiations and tell you to sit in the corner and don't say nothing. That would be very hard to do with somebody like you, Flex, anyway. But we don't do that. We work for the people, and we will respect what the wishes of the people are.
Gotta unmute you, Amanda. You go.
I said that was awesome. I said, because that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that the workers knew that they did have a voice, because a lot of time we fight with backwards and forth, whether you have a voice or don't have a voice. So what you're clearly saying to the workers is, not only do you have a voice, you have an option to tell us what you want us to fight for as the IAM, correct?
Yes, my job is to work on the behalf of the members. And when Delta becomes organized, they will become members. And my job, or anybody else in the IAM, would be to make sure that we negotiate. We're one cog in the wheel, but we cannot do it without the voice of the employees. And we're not going to go into negotiations behind closed doors and negotiate on your behalf without your team verifying what we're negotiating and approving it.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Flex.
Hey, I think I'm muted. Am I muted?
No, you're good.
Okay. I just saw it pop up on my screen. I'm sorry. All of that's great information. Another question we have, and you kind of mentioned it before when you were talking about contracts. Some people think that Delta's never going to give us this. No, Delta's not going to do this. Delta's not going to do that. With all the money that Delta is bragging about making, could you explain how that, like you said, we don't want to bankrupt Delta. We love Delta. We want to make sure that this thing keeps moving. Everybody makes money. Could you explain how that works in negotiations? You know what I'm saying? People think we can't get stuff, even though Delta's bragging about how much money they make year after year. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, let's face it. Delta has a distinct advantage over their competitors because, they have a lot of employees. Only one of them is unionized. So they maintain advantage, whether it be in staffing or benefits, or when times get tough, they really don't have to come to the union and try to negotiate. They could just take or reduce your working hours. So our job is to, when we go to the table, is to make sure that we take some of the money they're making as profit and share that with the employees. Now, remember, our employees, our members are employees of Delta Airlines. We do not want to change that. We as employees need Delta, but the union is a spokesperson on behalf of the collective voice. And for us to sit here and say that we're going to go in there and tell Delta they got to cough up $50 billion. That's not going to happen, but I could assure you that just like every other company, there will be a fair share of money that these employees will get. And when you look at your competitors out there, I mean, if you're a baggage handler or you're a customer service agent or whatever, on Delta Airlines, our competitors have contracts in place which provide certain things that are in writing. And right now, to be honest with you, Delta is lagging behind the industry in some cases by $2.12 an hour. And that is not something that you should brag about when you're the biggest airline making $5 to $10 billion a year. That's something you should do at the table to recognize the work of those employees, because that's who are making you make the money.
Amen, brother. Amen. Amen. I don't want to take up all the time. Let me get one last question in before I have to go. One of the biggest concerns that you hear about, I hear, is like work rules and insurance. Can you explain how that's done at the table? You know, like people say Delta's not going to cut our insurance regardless of what happened, or the work rules are the work rules. Like, I don't think people kind of fully understand it. Could you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, we'll handle the insurance piece. We deal with this in every negotiations. When you're on United, American, they all look at their competitors to say, what is the cost of insurance and what type of plan do you have? Do you carry the insurance when you're on a leave of absence? If you're furloughed, do you still get insurance? All these things cost money. And to be honest with you, the IAM maintains some of the best policies out there in the industry. For an example, United pays average 20%, and we're working on that, but the plans are very good. On American Ramp, they still have plans that are 80-20. They pay 7%, which is on average 14% lower than the industry. Now, granted, that's not one size fits all. Delta does offer benefits to all their employees. Some of those benefits cost a little bit more than other airlines, but in today's world, you can't be without benefits. So our job at the table would be try to negotiate the best benefits we can. And if we can't negotiate cost reductions, what we can do is get language to make sure that those plans can't be changed unilaterally. So at least we know what we have and how long we have it. So there's ways to get around that without bankrupting the company. And we would definitely do that here. As far as work rules go, listen, your work rules are, when you look at most labor contracts, you'll turn maybe 100 pages before you get to wages. And the reason that is, Flex, is because you have to negotiate what work you own and how you do it before you can negotiate what you get paid for it. Because you could have $40 an hour at the first page of the contract and have nothing after that, which means you own nothing. So our job is to make sure we negotiate fair overtime rules. Most companies are overtime after 8 hours, 40 hours a week, double time on seventh day, things like that. Holiday pay. Most of our contracts maintain 10 holidays, double time and a half if you work holidays. Simple things, and most of the contracts maintain good vacation allowance. The average right now in the industry is a little short of 6 weeks vacation. The best in the industry is 6 weeks after 24 years. And then we have some contracts like Hawaiian get 7 weeks after 29 years. But, that's a small group, but they do have that. Right now on Delta, you do get vacation. You get decent benefits, but none of that's contractually. And what you risk is we have another downturn in the industry, and those are certain benefits that the companies look at because they're very costly, and they can come and take them without discussing that with the union. And just having a collective voice and standing up for what is right and what is wrong means a whole lot.
Hey, I just wanted to say, Tommy, I absolutely have to go. Amanda and Fry, I know you guys got this. Y'all treat my buddy good. Tommy, you please treat them even better, because I know how you can do. I appreciate you, brother. I wish I could have stayed for the whole interview, but until next time, man, keep it strong, brother. I appreciate you.
You bet.
Thanks.
Now, the question that I was asking you was, you do this a lot. What are some of the common and most things that the workers are asking for? What is it that they really would like to see happen in a contract? If you don't mind answering that.
Yeah, the number one is economics. They all want to make a lot of money and do the least they have to do. But you have to remember that a union provides a service to the company, no different than it would be on Delta, that our members are there to make sure those airplanes move from point A and B as efficiently as possible. And we hope that Delta makes a lot of money. So when we go to the table, we could fight to get our share of that. So most of the time, people are looking at money. The second piece is quality of life issues. They want to be able to work, 8 hours a day, 2 days off in a row. They don't want to have mandatory overtime. They want to be volunteer overtime and vacation. When people start, they want a lot of time off to be with their family, flexible time. And those are things we're faced with nowadays as young families are growing. They want to have more time at home with their families. So that's a struggle sometimes, but we've achieved that in the contracts. Holidays and holiday pay, big issue. What holidays you get. Right now, the industry average is 10 on most of the IAM contracts. And on those contracts, they pay a premium to work that holiday because, as you know, in this business, it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And while most people are home slicing turkey, we're out on the ramp, swinging 50-pound bags and loading airplanes to make sure those people arrive at their destination safe. So I would say economics and then scope. Now, scope, for those of you who don't know what that is really the meat of any contract. What work do I own, and limits to contracting out of work, limits where we do the work, how many flights they operate before we have to staff the station. And right now, if you remember some time back when Delta made those big cuts, I think we were down to maybe 16 stations where we staff ramp service employees. Yeah. I think that's changed a little bit now, but most of these big airlines would rather staff their own stations than contract it out because it may be cheaper, but it's not more efficient. And controlling your own employees and having them dedicated pays off in the long run. So those are some of the issues.
Thanks, Tom, for that. And I'll let you get in, Stephanie. But another question that is often asked of us, like our OJI time and our sick time, how would a union be able to help separate that from going into your personal time to make sure if you get injured that you're using OJI time versus your sick time and your PPT time or vacation time? How could the union help with making sure that OJI times get paid out of that bank versus your personal time and vacation time?
Yeah, and that's a little bit tricky because it depends on where you start. I'm sure on Delta you have like a PPO bank that puts Yeah. So, if you were injured on a job on American, the first injury, you get the first 20 days are paid in full. And then you have a OJI bank that you can use to supplement workers' compensation up to 4 hours a day to make up 100% pay. On United, we have an OJI bank where you accumulate one sick day a month and one OJI bank. And if it's an OJI, you use that bank. And then if it's sick, you use this bank. So we have ways of going around that, but we shouldn't be using personal sick time for injuries on the job because that was no fault of our own. So
thanks for that, Tom. Stephanie, did you have something you want to jump in on before we proceed?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to ask, can you kind of talk about how Delta not having a contract really hamstrings workers' ability to advocate for themselves to a better degree, because we kind of hang a weight around the industry as far as benefits and pay and labor costs, because the company can essentially do whatever they want. Can you kind of explain how negotiations are influenced by having a company as large as Delta not being organized affects that in a negative way to
Well, let's face it. I mean, Delta's a large airline. They are very profitable. They deal with one union on a property, and I could assure you that the one union they deal with on that property is probably better off than most working employees at Delta, because they have a collective voice. Now, being their pilots, that may make a difference, but whether you're loading airplanes, you're cleaning airplanes, working on airplanes, or doing anything else, you deserve the same recognition. And with Delta, they simply just want to fight the union for one reason, because they don't want to lose the ability to have the advantage over their competitors, because we have a threat of a strike on the other airlines. We have a contract that is probably more valuable than Delta's work rules that are in place, and they enjoy advantage by doing that. So, to be honest with you, we're not here to break Delta. We're not here to run the company. We're only here to have a collective voice. And to be honest with you, if the money they spend over the years on anti-union busting law firms, if they put that money on the table, we'd probably all have a big smile on our face, because we'd probably be making good money. But I don't want to accuse them of doing that. But the fact of the matter is, they spend an awful lot of money trying to keep the union out. And if they would only accept the fact that the employees want a union and let that process work itself out, then they would deal with the union no different than they do on United, American, Hawaii, Alaska. And to be honest with you, we don't see those airlines running to go out of business because they have a union. They're also very profitable with union contracts that provide a pretty good living for those employees.
Wow, that's awesome. Did you have something else, Statman?
No, nothing really. Just more of a comment, because that's something we've said on this show quite a bit. That they invest a lot of money trying to discourage us from forming a union, and one that's kind of like a sign to me, that there must be something good to it, because if it wasn't, you wouldn't be this invested in trying to stop us. And two, if you would take that money that you had wasted trying to stop us and actually invested it in your employees in a meaningful way, maybe we wouldn't feel like we needed one. So I think, for a lot of people, I think they feel that way. A lot of our coworkers and viewers of this show, that, a lot of the talk that we hear and a lot of the articles you see in newspapers and a lot of the PR that they do is really tired at the end of the day, because when you're working short or with equipment that is inefficient, or you're being told that you're overstaffed, but the staffing is mismanaged all the time, you can only take that for so long before you get kind of to the end of your rope. So thanks for that information, kind of confirming a lot of what we talk about, Tom. But I'll let you go, Amanda.
Yeah. So, Tom, one of the things, and I know you had a long day. We've had a long day, and we don't want to take a lot of your time. But what are some of the things that Delta workers can look forward to, providing we get to an election and we win? What are some things that they can look forward to?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Delta employees have to stand up, and you've been told this many a times that under the law they have a right to organize, and we wish Delta would just, stay clear, allow the employees of Delta to make a choice. And if they choose that they would want a union, then allow them to do that without fear of any type of interference. Those people need to make sure they exercise their God-given right to say, I work for Delta Airlines. I feel I'm much better off with the union. And they should sign a card indicating that they would like to have an election for a union. And at that point, they could vote yes or no. But that's the first step. And then Once they do that, then again, we explain the process and how you go down that road. Now, granted, this is a large undertaking. We've probably made more progress with Delta employees now than we ever have, but we still have to get across the finish line. And I could assure you that, the IAM from a top down stand with those employees, but without those employees exercising their right under the law to initiate an election, then there's nothing we can do from the IAM side. As a matter of fact, if those employees would only do that, you can probably get to an election much quicker, because right now, having podcasts and all that, we tell them what we need from them, but it's strictly up to the employees. And if they really want a union, they know what they have to do. And if they do that, they will not be surprised what happens after that. And we're prepared to do that. So I would ask you and your folks to share that information and make sure that people say, listen, this is not a game. This is something that's very serious. And if you want a union, not to put Delta out of business or badmouth Delta Airlines or do any of that, all you want is a seat at the table like everyone else has in the industry. And when you get that seat, you'll negotiate with Delta Airlines. And at the end of the day, you'll either reach an agreement or you won't. 9 out of 10 times, all the things that Delta tells you, they will end up doing some of that at the negotiating table. And then we move forward, and our job is to help Delta make profits so we can succeed. That's what I see.
Thanks, Tom. Go ahead, Stedman.
So, kind of again, just continuing what you just said, Tom, what kind of advice could you give to workers, kind of to encourage them in these moments? Because I feel like a lot of people are discouraged and they're afraid to put themselves out there. They're afraid to. I mean, we do this podcast once a week, and we try to engage with the workforce as much as we can, at work and outside of work in all these different ways. But there are people who are afraid to kind of do this, who are afraid, or either, they're afraid because of their personal lives or whatever, to really put a face behind their union activism. But like, you've been in the industry for so long, you've seen it through ups and downs. What kind of advice would you give, maybe having seen the airline industry at some of the lowest points and seeing it maybe at what you would consider like a boom period, to motivate or encourage someone to see through the fear and to take their career or their life in their own hands and take those steps necessary to really put this in action? We know, there's a lot of pressure, external pressure, internal pressure, but to fight through all that and make the right decisions.
Yeah, I mean, Delta's, they have a lot of money. They have a lot of resources in, law firms that assist them in publications and anti-union propaganda. But listen, my encouragement to your employees is to listen. They have to weigh the options when they go home and sit at the kitchen table with their spouse, significant other, and say, listen, I feel that the way we're going at Delta is not consistent with the industry. And I have a choice, and my choice is to try to get a union. And when they sit there and weigh the odds are always going to lean towards a union will do better for them. But you are going to have many employees who love Delta, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love my airline too. But on the other side of the coin, those employees really don't understand what's going to happen down road if something goes haywire, because there's really not a seniority system in place, or if they have to reduce your hours from 40 to 32 and say that's not a pay reduction. Those things can happen when you're at-will employees. Now, encouragement is something that, certain people take advantage of. Now, if you're in a leader in an organizing drive, you really put yourself out there at risk, but you're not violating the law. So my encouragement to every one of your employees to say, listen, sign a card. You have a second bite at the apple, because even when you sign a card, that just gets you to a point of an election. At that point, you could then seriously consider whether or not you want a union, but give the union a fair shot as to give us a chance to get on the ballot. And then if you don't feel that you need a union, then you vote no. My guess would be we get an election, we will win at Delta Airlines, and we will end up negotiating.
That's awesome. So Tom, one last thing, and then we're going to wrap this up. Richie has said this many times, and also we want to give a big hand clap to Richie, because Richie has been standing by us, supporting us. The IAM has done a great job in supporting this drive and helping us to get as far as we would come. But the one thing he always does focus on is the fact that how the IAM looks now versus what the IAM looked before. And you spoke highly of Richie coming into the door. And one of the things Richie tried to explain to the workers is, and they have the question is, will Delta know I signed a card? If I sign a card, could I get in trouble? So just kind of like the last kind of wrap up, letting the employees know that Delta does not have any idea if you signed a union card. That is none of Delta's business. And Richie stresses that in a way where he lets them know that this is confidential information and their rights to do it. They have a federal right to organize. They have a federal right to seek an election. What would you say to that as we wrap this conversation up?
Yeah, I would say, listen, the federal law that protects us under the Railway Labor Act, is a serious law. And now Delta may make it seem like that they get access to see who signed the card. Absolutely not true. The fact of the matter is, when that card is signed, we as the IAM keep that very confidential in a locked proceeding. When we feel that there's sufficient interest to file for election, we hand deliver those cards to the NMB. They're turned over to the legal department at the NMB, and the only ones who see that cards are those folks at the NMP that would determine whether or not there's sufficient interest for an election. Now, granted, Delta may challenge to say they think there's fraudulent cards, they think this, they think that. They may send a message to people that makes them think that they can see who signed a card. But I can guarantee you this, that the NMB is not turning those cards over to anyone for a signature check. Those signature checks will be done by the board, and Delta Airlines will provide information showing their signatures from previous records, and that's what they will compare that to. But doing this in 40 years, I doubt the NMB is going to allow Delta Airlines to sit in a room and go through thousands and thousands and thousands of cards and make a wish list on who they're going to retaliate against. That's simply not true.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom, for that. And for those who don't know what he means by the NMB, it's the National Mediation Board, because some people are still brand new coming on to this year. So there you have it. You hear it. Delta does not know if you sign a card. Delta does not have the right to know if you sign a card. Once it leaves the hands of either the mail or anyone, no one has that right, not even us. So we just wanted to clarify that to you. If that's one of your fears, have no more fears, because the company does not, and we'll say this again, have a right to know who has and who hasn't signed a card. So if that's holding you back, put the card in the mail, sign the card, and let's get to an election. And Tom, we thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to come and spend some time with us and answer some of those questions that the workers really needed debunking, so that we can try to get to an election. So I'll hand it off to you, Stedman. And again, thanks, Tom.
You bet.
I'll just a round of applause for Tom joining us. I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks again. Just to kind of second everything Amanda said. I guess I have one more question if I can ask, and I'll try to keep it short. Can you kind of emphasize the reality of how much it is possible for the company to take away benefits and things because we don't have a contract? Because that was something you hit on, and you said it more than once. And I thought about it the more I thought about it. I thought about it, historically during COVID and things. Having a contract, making that barrier or making that obstacle for the company to really be able to take away some of your negotiated benefits and protections. Your how much more difficult is that for a union company to have their benefits stripped away versus a non-union company?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. I mean, Delta is very successful. But if the day ever came where Delta's business model was on the line, or Delta was in fear of losing business and they had to make dramatic changes, the first place they would go is to the path of least resistance, which would be the non-union, non-contract folks. The last place they would go would be to the pilots. And even if they went to the pilots, they would probably negotiate benefits with them, which the pilots would agree to at some point. And then in return, they would get something in return down road. So when you have a collective bargaining agreement, the work rules are the work rules. Absent a bankruptcy, where the company's in dire need of changes to the collective bargaining agreement, then you really don't have much to worry about, because no union is going to sit there and take an airline to the ground and put them out of business, because that's not something we do, because that's biting the hand that feeds us. But on the other side of the coin,
Pros again.
and when we negotiate on their behalf, they'll tell us what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do.
Okay, so really, just to kind of, because it broke off a little bit, it's when you have a contract, you have the opportunity to negotiate and go through that process. Whereas as a non-union employee, the company makes that decision unilaterally to take away whatever benefits or whatever decisions they want to make for their own benefit at the expense of the workers and whatever. Okay.
That's the choice you have as an at-will employee. You have no voice, and if that's what the employees at Delta choose, then at some point that will come back and haunt them.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again, and I'll close now. I'll read my little spiel here. Let's see. Let me try to set myself up. Okay. So, here I am. Thanks for tuning in with us. If you have questions that were not answered, or maybe a specific topic that you'd like to have addressed, leave us a comment and we will get back to you as soon as possible. You can also send an email. Also, all available links to information and materials are posted in the description. Remember, this podcast is powered by working people just like you, in solidarity. Peace.